Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we elevate marketing leaders inside and out. I'm your host, Veronica Rami, master marketer, executive leader, and mentor to ambitious marketing leaders wanting to advance their careers. Each episode is filled with genuine, unscripted conversations with some of the world's top marketing experts, accomplished leaders, and industry trailblazers representing brands, both large and small. Our goal with this podcast and everything we do is to help you master your role, nurture your team, prioritize your well-being, and evolve into an industry-leading rainmaker. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. Listen up, content marketers. If that is you, this is your episode. I cannot even express that enough. I just finished interviewing Megan Morreale, Italian, and it was a phenomenal conversation. Her mission right now is to help content marketers get promoted, and she's worked at some pretty big companies. So, I mean, both walked the walk, but also now helping others do the same. She's had some really incredible contracts with SEMrush. She's had it with Reddit. She's had it with Taboola. She's had it with Monday.com. I mean, she knows what she's talking about. And more than anything, she desires to pay it forward. And so our conversation was the three things that if you're in any type of content capacity role, that you should hear if your desire is to advance in your career in this moment, in this year, in this economy. I really loved how tactical some of the advice that she gave. And she had this whole section about the power of a reframe that I thought was so juicy. So without further ado, let's make it rain with my new friend, Megan.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you. So we are a little bit of soul sisters in the regard that you and I are both in the active pursuit of up-leveling and helping marketers do bigger things for themselves, their careers, their lives. You have a very specific specialty when it comes to content marketing, content marketers, content writers. And I'm like, ooh, because I feel like a lot of the rainmakers that I have the joy of like mentoring and coaching and guiding, they have such a variety of backgrounds. Some of them are paid advertising experts. Some of them are writers. Some of them are tech VAs. Like the marketing world is all over the place, right? And most marketers are self-taught. So to make sure that we're speaking the same language, how do you define what a content manager or content writer is? Just so that because I know titles in the marketing space are messy, like real messy.
Yeah. I think the truth is that a lot of times it depends on the job. But in general, content marketers are typically writers, videographers, or audiographers of some sort that create and launch content, often manage the channels as well. So content management sometimes includes SEO. It could include email. It could include social media, depending on the structure of your organization. But most content marketing managers that I know are responsible for the creation of written content for the website, typically owning SEO or in partnership with a growth org that owns SEO. And then they also will create a lot of content for other people and other channels in sort of a services function, like perhaps, creating a lovely article for the events team or worksheets for the sales team or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And it was because marketing copy as a whole doesn't mean they're all made equally. Like when I think of the skill set required to do a blog or a newsletter versus a sales copy, right? That persuasive copywriting ability to get you to click or get you to do a thing versus nurture and educate. Do you feel like most content managers or writers will specialize in the form of copy that they, perform, or are they more generalist, or does it depend on how they kind of come up in their careers?
I think it depends on the size of the organization. So in larger organizations, there might be room for specializing. But for most small to mid-size businesses, if you're hired as a content marketer there, you're doing it all.
You're doing
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about you specifically, because I was going through your career, your past, and I'm like, you've always been a writer. How did you know that you and the written word were soulmates? Have you always identified as a writer? How did this career path come to be for you specifically?
I really have always known I was going to be a writer. I actually asked my mom this question earlier in the year, and she was like, I don't know, one day you just came out of your room and said you were going to be a writer, and you were a writer. But I did originally think that I wanted to be a journalist. I majored in political science and journalism in college, thought I was going to be a political journalist. Long story short, I ended up covering a meetup in my home state in New Jersey for a gentleman who ran a PR agency. And I ended up working for him, covering his meetup of all these different tech startups in New Jersey, and ended up kind of transitioning over into PR. And that was like my first step into marketing. And I kind of realized like, hey, you know, I could kind of create content online and continue to write, but create more like interactive content and things that were exciting for me when I was young. I could do more of that in marketing than I would have in journalism at the time.
So you got the bug.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also the demand, right? Like there was, hey, there's a job for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I graduated college, it was rough for
Yeah.
journalism there. So.
But you didn't abandon ship, right? Like
Yeah.
from what I can tell, like you found it was an opportunity presented to you, but then you also proactively pursued it. I mean, you've been a content writer for Monday.com, you've been a senior manager for content marketing from Reddit.
Yeah.
I mean, SEMrush as a contractor basis, like you've worked with some big brands and now you're doing your thing, which is really exciting. How would you compare those two identities? One, you being an employee or staff member versus you being the employer, like you're the entrepreneur. Like, how has that been a shift for you in a paradigm kind of way?
For me, it's been a happy shift.
Okay.
I think that it just, when I have been in house managing teams and managing strategy, I'm sure you know this as well, like the more you rise, the less you do of writing or
What you like.
creating. Yeah. And there's so much joy and value in managing creatives. But I would say probably for like the last 5 or 6 years between my journey at Taboola and then at Reddit, I really wasn't doing a lot of writing and I was really missing it. And had been intrigued had an idea that I thought I could be helpful for others in my space. And being on my own has kind of helped me get back to executing, which has been really fun. You know? I don't know. And hopefully as I grow, it'll change again, but I'm enjoying it right now.
Well, I think it's an interesting moment in someone's career because as we get into what we get into, most of the time, I think because we have a passion behind the doing.
Yeah.
And you have the raw talent for, like your mom said, like came out of the room Taylor Swift style and like was a writer.
Yeah.
And so you have this passion and affinity for the craft and the art of what it is that you're doing. But then what often happens is I feel like people then go, but I want to make more money. And in order for me to make more money, I would have to take on non-doing, non-craft like, or non-art like responsibilities. And they do that and they kind of lose a little bit of their soul sometimes. But also, like, as you become a grown up, you're like, I need more money.
Yeah.
So, like, was that kind of your story, or how do you balance that need with like the practicality of earning more, but also wanting to stay true to the thing that gives you the most joy?
So I definitely wanted to earn more and grow
Yeah.
my title. I don't want to say that I didn't want to do those things. Obviously, I wanted.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah. But I think that when I really felt frustrated at work in roles where I was perhaps more junior, I think I was feeling frustrated by not being able to control the narrative around what I was writing. Like if you are in content marketing, you are the closest to the audience and the numbers that responds to what you're saying. And I felt like I knew better, or I had something to say at the table that would contribute to the way that we, at any and all of my jobs, I'm not just talking about one in specific, but I wanted to influence what we were saying and how we were saying it. And, if your organization really values content, that happens at the top. So I wanted to climb the ladder so that I could run the team, make the case for the
Control.
resources, and have some say in the narrative.
I won't disclose who necessarily, but I remember when I worked at Boss Babe and my chief of staff passed capacity, and we were in the middle of like the most chaotic launch possible. Like it was just chaos. And I could feel the decision fatigue. Like I had the tired eyes. I was getting like really fatigued out with like running this enormous affiliate launch for in collaboration with Tony Robbins and all the things that were going in my control, out of my control. And I remember having a conversation with my team and team of doers. So we had our designer, we had our, content manager or copywriter. We had all the peoples. And I was just like, guys, like, I'm going to hear me when I say this. I want to empower you guys just to make the call and like literally use that language, like make the call. Like,
Yeah.
and I think I said that in like one of those more tired afternoons for sure. But then like a couple days later, one of our more junior professionals who I had hired on, who I adore, she was very young, not just like I'm saying in age, but just professionally. And I think there was moments where she was a little bit scared of her own shadow, if we're being really honest. And I remember getting on a call with her and she told me she did something. And I was like, oh, like she told me like after the fact, she's like, yeah, I made the call. I was like, yeah, you did. And I was so proud. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like regardless of what position you're in an organization, like I think all of us have the desire or the need to like have that autonomy to make the call.
Yeah.
To call your shot, and the more that I think leadership can get out of the way to provide people those opportunities, or at least share the making the call responsibilities, I think the better the company culture ends up becoming anyways.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're passionate about this because in your own venture, you are helping. I love what you said on your LinkedIn. Hold on. Getting content marketers promoted. Hurrah. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? What promise land are you sending these people to?
So I think that content marketing is really changing and evolving. It's always changing and evolving, but I think
Sure.
it might evolve in a way. I think that content marketing is now so integral in every aspect of marketing that especially in larger organizations, I'm not sure that we're going to see standalone content marketing departments anymore. So I'm trying to help content marketers that are maybe more like generalist really try to understand what their specialties are, what their skills are, and how that might translate to other roles on marketing teams. We're seeing a lot of growth organizations or audience organizations or a lot of content creation coming out of product marketing now. So really trying to help content marketers understand what those roles are and whether or not they may be right for them. Those roles are also typically a lot closer to the business goals and typically like are higher paid. They're maybe a little bit more influential, like I was talking about before. So advocating a little bit for content marketers to at least consider them now. The content marketing role, I'm sure, will never completely disappear. But I think especially in most advanced orgs, it's just going to spread.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that you're helping content marketers translate their existing skill set into bigger, if not more futuristic positions, or positions that have a better future and better runway than the immediate one. Because like you said, you see things changing with all the stuff that's happening for marketing departments right now.
And there are a lot of studies out there these days. I see a new one in my LinkedIn feed probably every day that's like a salary report or how content marketers are feeling. And I see over and over again that content marketers feel like they have a ceiling. Like what comes after content marketing? So I think that's where the promoted piece comes in. And in some ways, it always depends on the situation and the person and the company. But in some ways, I think I'm advocating for a lateral move to move up.
How do you do this? I didn't fully stalk you. I should have maybe. But like how do you help these incredibly talented individuals get promoted? Like and maybe you could showcase some of your favorite stories of some of your clients, because I want to feel this. I want to almost like tangibly feel what you're talking about.
So I'm also not going to talk about the name of the exact person.
Of course.
One of my more recent clients wanted to rise from a head of content role into a role for a general marketing director or marketing VP or whatever the title. Again, titles are wild at organizations, but something that was more managing all of marketing. And her resume and the way that she described her experience to me was really grounded in the type of content that she created, the stories that she was telling, and a little bit in the numbers, but more about audience numbers that might matter more in a content marketing conversation than in a wider marketing conversation. So we talked about reframing what she had worked on in terms of campaigns and channels, and talking about more bottom of funnel business results that she may have impacted, and getting more comfortable staying in the numbers for that role. And we didn't, I wasn't advocating for changing anything about her experience, just the way that she talked about it. And I think as marketers, I hear this all the time where people will give you the advice that you should listen to your customer and use the words that your customers say in your marketing copy, because that's the best way to get inside their head. And I think job applications are the same thing. You want to use the words that they're using to describe the role, echo them back to them to describe yourself. So there's a lot of reframing. Another example, I was working with a young gentleman in a content marketing role who wanted to break into product marketing. So instead of talking about how he had owned the social media channels as a whole, I think there were a couple social channels that he owned, and then he owned the blog. We talked about how he had impacted the go-to-market strategy for several product launches by activating those launches through those channels, and recommending that he really just focus on the product launches. I think people approach networking conversations, job applications, like whatever it may be, conversations with their manager about getting promoted, by trying to craft almost this like dating profile of here's everything that I am. Here's everything that I am. And I don't think you need to do that. If you want a product marketing role, focus on the product marketing stuff that you've influenced. I think you have a better chance of making the move.
You know what I think it is, though? It's like we as marketers, we're so good at marketing other things and suck at marketing ourselves. Like we're just terrible at it. I think, one, because it requires like that ego part of us be like, yeah, I'm pretty awesome. Like it's, and we're like, oh, I don't want to be a narcissist. But if you're not going to sing your praises or, send yourself some flowers, then like who else is supposed to do that on your behalf? And then that puts, your future in somebody else's hands, which I'm not always a big fan of, but that's my personality. Like if I can't articulate my value, then maybe I'm not also ready for the position. But that requires, as much as it requires like tactical reframes like you're talking about, it also requires some mindset gremlin, work. Does that come up in the work that you do quite often? Like just what's happening inside, not just what they're doing on the outside to better position themselves?
Absolutely. I think that, marketing so naturally touches everything.
Yes.
And I think that it's very natural for us to assume that that is going to be the most impressive way to present ourselves. Like we know how the entire org works because we touch the entire org. So I often find that people have trouble just focusing on certain projects or just focusing on a portion of their work. I see it most with more senior candidates that are either like my level or above, where we talk about the dreaded one-page resume and they're like, there's no way that I could ever trim my resume to a page. And I'm like, you can if you remove some of your experience that's irrelevant to the role you're applying for. Because like I'm looking at this and really
they're like terrified. No.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, but then I'll look junior. And I'm like, there are ways, but I think that's where I find the internal battle. I haven't really come across many people that I've coached that are nervous about showcasing their experience in one way or the other. It's more about trimming it down.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's good to know.
Hey Rainmakers, it's Veronica, and we'll get back to today's episode. But before that, I have an exciting invitation for all of you aspiring, ambitious marketing leaders. If you are serious about advancing your career in marketing and you're looking for an expert to give you some personal insights, guidance, tips, then I'm going to invite you to schedule a free Pathway to Promotion call with me. This is a special one-on-one call with just you and me to discuss your current roadblocks in your career, your long-term aspirations and ambition, and the next best step for you and your personal promotion. Head to pathwaycall.com or click the link in my show notes to schedule your free Pathway to Promotion call. Now back to today's episode.
So what would you say are the top 3 areas that if I were listening to this podcast, because I'm sure the title of this podcast is like, ooh, content marketers. I'm a content marketer, right? So you have a whole bunch of people, content marketers, who are listening to this conversation. What are the 3 things that you would want them to seriously consider if they are wanting to be promoted and to be advanced in their careers at this moment in 2024?
So I guess the biggest thing that I try to get across both in finding a new job or getting promoted is that you need to find out what your manager or what a hiring manager wants.
Okay.
And you need to be able to give them that.
Okay.
So if you are a content marketer and you want to get promoted to lead a team, your hiring manager likely wants you to be able to regularly report and set your own goals, have the soft skills that you need to manage a team, perhaps manage a budget. Those aren't necessarily things that you'll naturally have just from knowing how to make and promote content.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on learning those skills or framing those skills first. Don't necessarily come out of the gate with the things that might seem the most obvious to you because they're what you do day to day. And same when applying for jobs. Job listings have a lot of read between the lines hints about what an organization really wants. When I work with more senior people and they're looking for like VP of marketing roles, for instance, some of them you can clearly tell are like, we hate our brand. We need someone who can build our brand. And others are like, we need a lead gen funnel that works. Like we need leads that work. So you can kind of pay attention and frame your experience thusly. The other thing that I would say that I hear a lot from mostly my audience on LinkedIn is just that everyone finds it so frustrating that they think they spend all this time, developing points for a conversation with their manager for their yearly review, or they spend all this time on a resume and like no one reads it. And I think that I understand why that's frustrating, but I would recommend to approach what you're creating with that in mind. Like we are all insanely busy. We all have day jobs. And crafting a resume, for example, to be skimmable is going to put you like head and shoulders above so many other candidates. Or, crafting the flow of a conversation with your manager to like be structured in a way that you're hitting the 3 points that you want your manager to hear and have her walk away with that knowledge in her mind. Consider the fact that there's a million other things flowing through that person's day as well.
Seriously.
And I think you're head and shoulders above the rest. And then I guess the last thing that I would say is that I often recommend people before they even touch their resume, before they start those bullet points to talk to their manager to get promoted, consider your allies. So whether that's hunting down a referral for a job application or making sure that your cross-functional partners in your role would support your rise or your promotion, that is like hands down the most effective thing and should be the first thing that you do. So, and also an answer that I often give when people say, I'm spending all this time customizing my resume and they're not going to see it anyway. Well, you can pretty much assure that somebody's going to see it if you're referred. So spend the time hunting down a referral first. And if you can't find one and you don't want to spend the time on the resume, then maybe you don't really want that job. Find one that you do.
True.
That you can. Those would be my 3 big things, I think.
Well, I think those are phenomenal. I think that's great. When you were saying about like figuring out what the hiring manager or the organization really wants, it reminded me of that scene in The Notebook where he's like, "What do you want?" She's like, "It's not that simple." It's one of my favorite gifts, favorite parts. Like, oh gosh, it's just so applicable, but it's true. And I love how what you said about these job listings. Yeah, like read in between the lines. Some of them, because marketing is so broad. Oh my gosh. And like, I feel like a lot of marketing departments are absorbing not only just content, but even just like direct sales functions. So it's like this, chief revenue officer, chief growth officer. It's like anything that makes money. We need money. It's just so broad. But sometimes the job listings will give clues as to where they feel like they're hemorrhaging the opportunities in a prospect journey. Like, how do I take somebody from $0 to $1, and where are we struggling the most? Is it in lead acquisition? Is it in the sales conversion conversation? Like, and yeah, if your content marketers or any marketers can articulate their readiness and ability to fix that broken element in a journey that the company is needing to improve, you're a very strong candidate regardless of what you've done in the past,
Yeah.
I like that. That's actually really good.
I do think that those are the best jobs to find. By the way, regardless of whether or not you're getting promoted or looking for a new job, that specifically with content marketing roles, you'll see these job listings that are like, you need to own SEO and affiliate marketing and all of our social media channels. And also, we have no idea what the goals for this role are because we really just want you to write everything. But like sometimes you'll find content marketing jobs where it's like, we need you to grow our case study program. You're creating content for case studies.
The specificity,
Yeah, and you'll be held to retention goals. That's a much better job to go for than the other.
Well, and the first job listing that you described, it's pretty much like, we need a savior, like somebody save us. And it's like, I'm bullish on this. Marketers are not saviors. We're marketers. Like, don't hire me because you need me to save your company or your ass. Like, don't do that.
Or we don't really know what we want, and somebody convinced us to open this role.
Yeah, don't do that either.
Yeah.
So what's the future? I mean, you yourself have a wild, like a crazy impressive resume. I would imagine that lots of brands will knock at your door and try to like scoop you back up inside. But like, what's your 5-year vision? What's your 5-year plan for you? Like, what is it that you aspire to do and become in the next couple of years?
I don't necessarily know what I want to be when I grow up right now.
I didn't ask it like that, but I could have.
Yeah. I think that like I have 2 things that I really want to do. And right now I'm finding success doing them simultaneously. One is I'm really liking the control that I have over finding creative projects and working with brands as a consultant or as somebody that just works on and launches a campaign. I'm having so much fun doing that.
The diversity, I would imagine, is also fun. The challenge, right?
Yes. And then second, I would really like to make the advice and the work that I'm doing with one-on-one coaching right now more accessible in some sort of digital product. I don't know what it would be. I don't know if it's a course or templates, or I don't know if anybody wants to sit through a whole course on applying for a job, but
I do think people are getting if you're on the masterclass team, don't listen to this, but I do feel like people are a little bit educationed out right now.
Yeah.
And I know it's a wildly lucrative industry. So, I mean, people might scoff at what I just said, but me personally, like anybody that positions or offers me some type of online education, online curriculum, online course, I'm like, no, I don't have it in me right now. Done for you. Yes, sir. Or high proximity offers, even if they're group, but high proximity where somebody can speak directly into what it is that I'm doing because I'm a unique snowflake that I'm a big fan of. But obviously the other issue as a business owner is the scalability of those type of offerings versus, something that can be consumed on your own or sold through, a third party site or something. So it is a real offer dilemma that all of us entrepreneurs in a consultancy capacity have to debate with ourselves about, but it will come to you like it comes to all of us,
Yeah, I think also it's important for me to figure out a solution where the pricing can be extremely accessible, especially for those who may have been, a part of layoffs or are struggling in this incredibly hard job market right now.
For sure.
So yeah, I think I will always continue in some capacity working for brands on their content or their strategy.
It makes you a better coach anyways. You don't lose, your edge. And I still do private services, even though I mentor others. And when I'm having a bad day in a private client relationship, I'm like, I got some good content to teach the people, so it actually helps me quite a bit because you're not too far removed from their reality.
Yeah.
Sometimes when these coaches, when they put themselves too much in a tower, it's the work or the coaching and the mentorship is not as great.
Yeah.
So we do this thing on the podcast where the last question is yours to ask. And I don't know what you're going to ask me, but I'm excited.
So I have a lot of clients who really want to break the content marketing ceiling. Okay. So as someone who has held really like the highest of leadership positions with such a strong marketing background. What is your advice for jumping from any marketing specialty into leadership? Does one need to hold several different types of marketing positions first? Or, can you just kind of like climb the ladder into a marketing leadership position? Like what advice would you give to those people?
I don't know. I might give a controversial answer. I think it's a phenomenal question. So thank you. And I've never been asked it on the podcast. So yay for first. Yeah. If you're not first, you're last, said Ricky Bobby. But first of all, I don't think if you take an executioner at the highest level and just drop them into a leadership capacity that translates in success. Having a success in my own individual contribution does not mean that I will have success in helping other people with their individual contribution. So like just understanding that, like, do you desire leadership because you genuinely like working with people and helping them be successful beyond yourself? Or do you desire leadership because it makes more money on paper? So like first discernment stop or filter is like, why do you want to be a leader in the first place? I'm one of those weird individuals that I actually like people management. And people management is the way that it rolls is you're working with human beings who are consistently inconsistent. And if that is aggravating for you, then you shouldn't be in people management and you probably shouldn't have children. It's really the same. Like there are days in the house and in the workplace where it's like Groundhog Day. You're like, I swear we just had this conversation. But I'm one of those weird people that I genuinely enjoy working with others. Like when I was chief of staff, I would have 7 or 8 Zoom calls a day with just different staff members. I'd have a conversation with our copywriter and we'd be brainstorming over email strategy for a cool new campaign we wanted to do with some win backs, like winning back some former members. And then I would have a conversation with our Facebook ads person. Then I'd have a conversation with the CEO about, like, generally speaking, where are we going 6 months from now? Like, as exhausting as a Zoom marathon type of day is, because I like people management, I would always like walk away happy, even though like you're Zoomed fatigue, right? Because I'd rather be in the office with people versus like doing it through this device or this medium. But with that said, when inside the Rainmaker residency program, we help people, first of all, accept the fact that they are a leader. Can I tell you that some of the most prominent human beings in leadership positions don't even accept the fact that their identity is leadership and leader? Mm-hmm. We do it on both fronts. Hey, CEO, you're not just a chief executive officer, aka chief everything officer. You're a visionary. Your job is to vision cast for your company. Like, did you know that you're a visionary? Do you accept that reality for yourself? Holy crap, no, I didn't. Hey, Rainmaker, your responsibility is people management, strategic thinking, and making sure that your team is individually contributing for the benefit of the whole. Like, do you understand that's a leadership position, not just where your internal thermostat wants to go into your own individual contribution? Like, just owning your identity as a leader is like everything to being a successful leader. So let's just start with that. But the advice I would give to your people who want to make that jump in their careers, who have done such a great job to showcase their talent, is you need to start thinking about, how can I get other people to showcase their talent? And this requires you to self-reflect. And this is really difficult. How did I do it?
Yeah.
And more importantly, I'm never going to have like a team of baby Veronicas. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, I'm not going to have these little mini V's running around that are spicy Cuban Latinas. Just like it doesn't work like that. I have, most marketing personnel that I've ever had have neurodivergency. They're ADHD or something along that lines. We talk about it frequently. How I would manage somebody who has ADHD is radically different than I would manage a type A type of person. Or if you're really into the Enneagram, like, an Enneagram 8 is a natural challenger. Every single meeting, I know they're going to like call me out on something, and I'm like, I love you, but like, it's their way of being, So I think that's the other thing too. It's like, if you're serious about people management, in addition to just learning more marketing, you're going to start to really want to learn more psychology. And that's something that I don't think I was personally prepared for. It was certainly not like on the docket of my like formal education institution type of material. Like, I didn't study it in school. I've done therapy personally. I'm a big proponent of it for your own mental well-being, but I never studied psychology from a people management necessity angle until I got into very significant leadership positions.
how you motivate one person is not the same, or how you love one person and their love languages is not the same on how you can motivate another person.
Yeah.
So like it is both art and science, but more than anything, and I'll wrap it up with this, like you have to want to do this. You have to want to be a leader. You have to want to work with human beings who are going to disappoint you and then also surprise you in the most glorious ways. You're going to want to work with people who their success gets showcased before your success. Like it's very different. It's a very humbling experience, just like parenthood is.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love your answer, because when I took my first leadership position, I remember thinking to myself that I was enjoying myself, but I had wished that beforehand I had talked to somebody else in the position just to say like, hey, what does your day look like?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Because I don't think it was really explained to me when I was given the promotion. Like, this means that you don't write anymore. This means you talk to people all day.
Talk.
Yeah. And you're in spreadsheets and you
Yeah.
make business cases and you present numbers. Like that's
Yeah.
what your day looks like. And it's so important to know that going in. So I love that answer.
Yeah, my husband just got promoted earlier this year to VP of sales. So I'm a marketer, he's a salesperson. It's a really fun dynamic, but he just got promoted to VP, and he's upstairs and I'm downstairs, and I just hear him on Zoom calls all day. He's having a team with individual contributors. He's having a team with like, the region. He's having a team with the chief revenue office. I mean, like meeting. And if it's not meeting, it's Slack, which is, so it's just like leadership is communication.
Yeah.
If the prospect of you having an entire week where you're constantly talking to somebody exhausts you just in thinking of it, there might be some room for you to grow.
Yeah.
But this is where I'm telling you, I like people management, the joy. Like, this is what I tell my friends. When you're in the business of human transformation, you can't ever do anything else. Like, there's nothing that comes close to the joy that one person receives in their life than helping people transform. Now, you can help your clients, your paying clients transform, or you can help your team transform. But both is the art of human transformation that you get to help facilitate for another human being. And if you don't understand how special that is, then you're not really meant for real, true leadership and people management capacities, because that's what it is to me. And I can't describe that until you feel it. You know what it is when you feel it yourself.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Mic drop. All right. To Megan. It happens. Megan, I found you on LinkedIn and scooped you up when I saw that you're like, I'm piecing out of this role. I have a passion to help content marketers. Like, I want to tell your story on the podcast. Please come. And I will link to all the things. Do you want people to hang out with you and reach out to you and tell you how awesome you are on LinkedIn? Do you want them to go to your website? What would your preference be?
LinkedIn is definitely the best place.
Yeah, it's fun.
My website exists too, and you can reach me there. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn these days.
Cool. Awesome. Love it. I love your branding. I love the colors and everything. So with that, Megan, thank you so much for being on today's Rainmaker podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Thank you for joining us on today's Rainmaker podcast. Marketers help other marketers. So if there's a marketer in your life who could really use a new perspective in a way that helps them advance their career, please pass this episode forward, share, leave us a review. Everything helps as we embark on helping as many marketers elevate themselves inside and out. You can always visit veronicarami.com for today's show notes, additional links to some free resources and tools for you to help you advance your career. You can always connect with us on social media at @ViaRami if you want more behind the scenes or a way for us to connect personally. Until next time, my friends, make it rain.